I'm Bob Brill. He's Eric Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill Fantasy Football Podcast, and now a videocast as well. You can hear the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, libsynradio.com, and wherever you get your podcasts. And now you can also see the videocast on YouTube by going to the Bob Brill YouTube channel. It's my YouTube channel, or you can find the links for all of this at kramerandbrill.com. That's the easiest way. Right there on the bottom of your screen, kramerandbrill.com. We'll take a look at how we did for you, look at this week's games and who's trending, and our feature Ask the Quarterback. Each week, we select a fan who writes in to ask Eric a fantasy football-related question. We bring the fan on to the video podcast to ask the question directly, and you can be that fan simply by emailing us at brillpro@gmail.com. That's brillpro@gmail.com, and you can see it, again, right there on the bottom of your screen. So how did we do for you? Well, I like to say that Ben Roethlisberger, coming out of the COVID protocol, led all quarterbacks with 333 yards and 4 touchdown passes. We like Brady at his 341 and 3 scores, plus a rushing touchdown. We also were high on Rodgers, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Tua, as well as Watson. They were all fantasy solid. I liked Alex Smith, and he threw 55 passes for 390, but did not have a touchdown pass. Now, you like Bridgewater, and he accounted for 3 scores. You like Mullins. I did not. He was totally harassed and threw a pair of picks. You like Burrow. I did not. He had one of his worst games, chased by the Steelers defense all day. Running backs, now you like Dime Hines, and he was solid. I liked Ronald Jones. He went for 192, albeit 98 on one play. I liked Wayne Gallman, his 2 TDs, but who saw Nick Chubb coming back for 126 and a score? We both were good on Josh Jacobs with 112 and a pair of TDs, but we're still wary of the tandem situation with Devontae Booker. On the wide receiver front, who saw Keelan Cole scoring a punt return for a touchdown and a receiving touchdown? I like Michael Pittman coming on. I said it should be a play. 7 catches, 101, added 21 rushing. DeAndre Hopkins was again outstanding. We really like Valdez-Scantling this week. He had a TD score and 4 catches for 149. Now, you thought T. Higgins was due for another good game, and he had one. 7 for 115 and a touch. I was appalled at the lack of targets for DK Metcalf. 2 of 4 for 28 yards in a losing effort. What the heck's going on with Russell Wilson all of a sudden? Well, trending up this week, Kyler Murray, Alex Smith, Deontay Johnson, Ronald Jones, Brandon Alliott, Keelan Cole, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, and Davian Harris. Now, trending down this week, DJ Dallas, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Amari Cooper, and the Dolphins released Jordan Howard this week, so he could be trending up or maybe trending down. Whichever team needs a running back, he might be there. And Jacksonville put running back Chris Thompson on IR. Also, the Pack activated Allen Lazar, and the Giants placed kicker Graham Gano on the COVID list, activating Ryan Santoso. So, what about your picks for the week? What are you looking at this week?
Well, let me tell you who else was appalled. DK Metcalf looked appalled during the game.
Yes.
The problem was Jalen Ramsey gave Russell Wilson no option or eliminated that one. And the good thing, I think, for DK Metcalf, he won't be playing Jalen Ramsey every week. And Russell Wilson, you mentioned, what happened to him. I think it's hard to have 16 great games in a row, right? So,
yeah.
He played probably at that time, at least trending-wise, probably the best defense in the league. And they put it all together, both offensively and defensively that night. I think you mentioned Alex Smith, who I think could be, if he keeps playing this way, maybe the story of the year. The fact that he's playing at all should be a story.
No,
unfortunately, they're just not winning. But if they were to somehow win a few games and he continues to play well, that could be a great story. Certainly for comeback player of the year. I would say also Kyler Murray, in his second year, I heard a comment, I can't remember if it was Chris Collinsworth or Al Michaels, saying he's on pace to become, I think maybe the only, correct me if I'm wrong, but 4,000-yard passer and 1,000-yard rusher in the same season. And what a great story. I mean, every week so far, he's been awesome. And
he's been fun to watch, too, really fun to watch.
He's like the ultimate guy playing quarterback. Every game he plays, he's the best running back and quarterback on the field. And there's times you can say that about Lamar Jackson too, but I think Kyler Murray is probably more of a pure passer at this point than Lamar. And then I think that, again, I mentioned the Rams and that defense. That's a big story because I think they're hitting their stride, both offensively, they've been solid all year, but now defensively, they look unstoppable. And along with your Steelers defense, at least this is one in the NFC. And then, I think one story to watch going forward, Drew Brees is the ultimate fantasy football quarterback because he always throws to the right guy, always throws for 70-75% completion percentage, always puts up numbers. And now for really the first time I can remember since his shoulder injury, which ended up happening at the end of a year in San Diego, this one happens where there's nearly half a season left. So now we're going to see how Jameis Winston, does he benefit from being Drew Brees' backup like Teddy Bridgewater did? And now Teddy Bridgewater's looking great in Carolina. Can Jameis Winston do the same thing? And so far, filling in for this one game, didn't throw any picks, so at least that's going in the right direction.
The other guy there is Taysom Hill. You're thinking Jameis Winston over Taysom Hill, and I like that, and I think that's where they're going too. But Taysom Hill's an awful fun guy to watch. He could get more.
But like you said, you'd rather start him at tight end than at quarterback, right?
Exactly. Well, now we come to our new regular feature, Ask the Quarterback. And today we welcome in Randy Cardoon, longtime fantasy football owner, as well as a sportscaster and podcaster in Los Angeles, who has his own podcast talking about cars. And I know that's what he's doing right now because he was just sitting there editing, talking about cars. I know that. Randy joined us on our Super Bowl show last season. Randy, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks, Bob. And did you know that you have the Detroit Lions fight song for people that are on hold? Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Sung by Eric. Who knew? I didn't know that.
So I have had some influence on this show. I love it.
There you go. See, that works out. I just didn't know if you knew that. A little behind the scenes, maybe too much behind the scenes stuff. For those of you who are in LA, I am a sports anchor at KNX 1070 News Radio. I also do a podcast called the Talking About Cars podcast. The logo right there on radio.com. We talk to celebrities about their car stories. Eric, you got any good car stories? We'll have to get you on the show one of these days.
Well, no, but in fact, I have no good car stories, but I can tell you what my first original car was that my mom bought.
What was that?
It was a 1975 red with a white top Dodge Colt. Not going to make any car show story.
No, it won't. Well, everybody has a car story, and I'm sure you could tell us some interesting stories about the Dodge Colt. But we're not here to talk about cars. We're here to talk about football.
You're on it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about that. And I think everybody's gone through this situation, and we all handle it differently. I'm a sports guy, and it's all about what's going on between the ears because, as Eric knows, this is a very cerebral sport, whether you're playing or whether you're trying to pretend you're a general manager. So the question is this. Let's say, and this has happened a lot for a lot of people, especially with injuries and COVID and everything else this year. You got a guy, you lose the player to injury, you need to replace him. What is your key factor in deciding their replacement? How deep do you go when you research that?
This is how deep I go. Did he go to NC State? That's how deep I go. And in that case, Naheem Hines, who just has exploded these last couple of weeks, that's who I would go with. I mean, he catches the ball. He runs great routes. He's obviously got some explosiveness to him in the run game. He ran and scored in the running game and passing game. Yes, NC State, NC State, NC State. That's all you need to write down.
Okay.
I have to.
The guy handing him the ball and throwing it to him also went to NC State.
I have to interject here because when we're recording this, Eric is with his old NC State coach in North Carolina in a barbecue place, waiting till the show gets over so he can go have his barbecue.
I'd be saying the same thing if I was waiting to get barbecue. I'll tell you that much. Wow.
Right.
Okay, so let's follow
to seriously answer your question, Randy, I would say that, at this time of year, you're going to get guys hurt like Drew Brees, right? That never get hurt, but here you got one. So now what do you do? Do you play Jameis Winston? Do you pick him up? I would say, I don't know, because is he going to be last year's Jameis Winston where he throws 30 interceptions? Or is he going to do what Teddy Bridgewater did and learn from one of the best ever and then go out and then play like a great quarterback this year, which he's doing in Carolina? So I don't know. A lot of times, here's another thing too. If you've got a guy that plays in a one-back system, whereas there's only one guy getting the majority of the reps and the catches or the runs, then replace him if he gets hurt with his backup. But if you're on a team, if you've got a guy like with the 49ers, for example, okay, the same offense Kyle Shanahan's running game wise is the same one his dad Mike ran when he was coach of the Denver Broncos, when it was only Terrell Davis. That's the guy that was getting 1,800, 2,000 yards a year. But in San Francisco, all three are getting that together, but chopped up. So probably stay away from teams like that or situations like that.
Yeah, I tried to do the situation with the Rams three running backs.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I picked Henderson, and I picked not totally wrong, but not totally right, too.
Right.
So that
But you're going to, in that situation, your best upside is going to be 60, 70 yards, maybe a touchdown, but it could be the same 60 for the other guy or the same 60 for the other guy. So who knows?
Yeah, absolutely true. So the next thought is you've got players coming off IR now, injured reserve, and you also have, for example, Nick Chubb just came off of, and this kind of answers the question, but I'd like your feedback on it. Players coming off ER, do you play somebody the first week off ER, or do you give them a week to kind of acclimate themselves? In the case of Chubb, you have to worry about it, but otherwise.
Okay, so this is my go-to response for that, is that as a player, you always come back before you're ready. You just by the nature of the sport, and any sport really, because there's a whole operation called the personnel department that's fully staffed at all times and dedicated to finding your replacement before you're even gone. So that's, I think players come back with that in mind, that getting back on the field is their next step, which really happens about a week or two later when they start hitting their stride. That's hamstring injuries, in this case, COVID. Look at Cam Newton coming back from COVID, and he still doesn't look like the Cam Newton before COVID. So I think injuries, especially things, well, like we're learning about COVID now, hamstrings especially. You know, I once had a separated shoulder when I was playing in Chicago, and that's like a 6-week injury. Well, I was trying to come back before that because my replacement was playing pretty good, but he played good enough so that I didn't come back. And so I think that's kind of the nature of, if you put a guy back in your fantasy lineup, the minute he comes back or the game he comes back, you run the risk of him just being a body out there for a week or two.
Good point. Good point.
Cool. So does that answer your question, dude?
That answers my questions, plural, by the way. Yes. Good job. Good job.
I was thinking when you're talking about picking the Rams guys, and you picked the wrong one of that line from Indiana Jones, where the Temple of Doom, where the knight is in the cave, and he says, "You chose poorly."
Well, I could have chose Cam Akers. That would have been really bad, but at least Henderson salvaged it by scoring a touchdown. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I could have gone Malcolm Brown. I could have been a contender.
Oh my gosh! All right.
That's like playing the 3-shell game, though. You know, you got a 33% chance of being right, but you got a 66% chance of being wrong.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the NFL 2020. Hey, Randy, thanks for coming on the show. Always enjoy it. And we'll talk to you next time, and keep playing fantasy football.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right. Remember, if you'd like to ask the quarterback, just email me at brillpro@gmail.com. If we select you, we'll be in touch. We'll bring you on the show next week. And the email right there on the bottom of your screen. We just asked you to do it. Just join us there. And at the bottom of the screen, brillpro@gmail.com. And now let's get to this week's games. Cardinals and Seahawks. The Kyler Murray show continues in Seattle. Should be a really good one. I can't see the Seahawks faltering again, but they are kind of in a funk right now. The Cardinals are flying high. Kenyon Drake had a quiet 100-yard day. And against Seattle, I like Christian Kirk, especially here. Now for Seattle, watch the injury wires. His running back, Alex Collins, could be a play here if Chris Carson is still out. Freddie Swain at wideout is getting some notice, and that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, I would say, okay, so if you look at the Seahawks, right? So last game, I know they played the Rams, who are a very complete team right now. But what part of the Seahawks team, whether offense, defense, special teams, which part of that team played well. None.
Yeah.
So I know the Cardinals aren't the Rams, but they're not far behind, and they're a pretty good team too. And I think it's interesting now that all this talk all year long has been about Russell Wilson being the lead dog in the MVP race. No one's really talking about Kyler Murray. Yet, if you match up the two, it's hard to tell them apart. And really, the Seahawks have looked to be, in the win column wise, a contender, playoff, maybe Super Bowl, but then defensively, they don't look that way. And then this past game, offensively, they didn't look that way. But the Cardinals, nobody's talking about, and yet they're a very good team, and have beat good teams. So I know this is a fantasy football show, but I think in terms of who's going to win and lose, I think the Cardinals have every bit of chance as the Seahawks of winning this game. And I think Kyler Murray is going to come out of this game as normal, as throwing for a lot, running for a lot. Probably going to have – he's got a good chance at getting 3 touchdowns, whether half of them or a third of them be rushing or passing. Like, he's going to come out of the game with 3 or 4 touchdowns pretty much every week. And I think that, as you mentioned, Christian Kirk is a prime guy that he could go to. Also, DeAndre Hopkins is they're loaded top to bottom. And I think Russell Wilson, he's great. There's no doubt about it. Obviously, another NC State quarterback. But he's right now kind of hitting that point where, yes, I'll give him, you played the best defense in the league probably. But he's been doing it all by himself most of the year. And then they took away really his best target in DK Metcalf with one guy. So that means they could take away everyone else with everyone else playing zone and this matchup. Jalen Ramsey, they got burned a couple times on that scheme, but by and large, they shut DK Metcalf down. And I think that's going to give the Cardinals and teams that play the Seahawks in the future, an option of, can we do that?
Bengals of Washington. I have to think Burrow will be back this week, and I'm good on Higgins. I like Samaje Perine here over Giovanni Bernard. A.J. Green had 5 targets, no receptions. Washington, stick with Gibson and McLaurin, and notice J.D. McKissick got 15 targets plus 8 rushes, worth a flex look as long as Alex Smith is under center.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, or we've talked about how Alex Smith, is putting up numbers. The fact that he's even walking and even has his full leg is a miracle. And then he's back playing in the NFL is another miracle and doing well. I think that's a story to watch all year. And obviously having other options besides McLaurin, when you have other options, he's still going to show up as he's been doing. But now you've got Gibson. McKissick is now showing up here. So I think they become a real, fantasy football play, which obviously in the beginning of the year, nobody on Washington was. And then the Bengals, Joe Burrow, yeah, he had not a great game. But by and large, he's a solid start every week, unless you've got, potentially Kyler Murray in front of him. Would I start Joe Burrow over Kyler Murray? Probably not. But this week, I don't know. I at least consider it because Joe Burrow is that good to me.
Falcons and Saints, big story here, Drew Brees. Now, Brees is injured, not able to go. It'll likely be Jameis Winston, as we mentioned earlier. But it could be Taysom Hill, who actually is listed as a tight end at ESPN. Now, he did rush for 45 yards last week, saw that erased with a fumble. Now, this could be a Friday decision, so you really want to take a real good look at the NFL.com. Atlanta coming off a bye, so anyone on this team is worth a start. However, you want to watch the injury wires for Ridley, who took the week off with a foot problem. If he can't go, I like Gage to pick up the slack here.
Well, this goes back to the question that Randy answered. Okay, here's Ridley coming back now. In his first game back, is he a guy that you're going to start? I wouldn't, even though he's a phenomenal player. But if I've got somebody that's potentially equal caliber, let's say Calvin Ridley, I don't know what he averages per week, but let's just say it's a touchdown and 70 yards. I don't know what that equates to point-wise. But I'm going to give him
13 points, yeah.
Okay, so I would say I would expect maybe 6 points out of him. If there's another receiver that has the potential that kind of averages maybe 6 or 7 to 10 points, but then if they have a favorable matchup defensively, I might take him over Calvin Ridley. That's an example of what I was talking to before with Randy. And I think, again, the big question mark here, you don't know. Is it going to be Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill? I think it's going to be Jameis Winston because he's the guy they went to in the game. But I guess you really don't know. And Sean Payton's a great, disguiser of what his intentions are going to be. And so I think that's, you just don't know. And if you don't know the quarterback, then it's really hard to go with some of the other options they have. But no matter who's playing quarterback for the Saints, Alvin Kamara is going to produce.
Yeah, and this could be just a game time decision too. Steelers, Jaguars. Steelers 9-0 on the road, which I'm not sure means anything this year, according to COVID. Steelers hitting on all cylinders, albeit it was against the Bengals, and with a focus on James Robinson this week. Now, if they shut him down, DJ Shark is going to be the first target, along with Keelan Cole and Chris Conley. Robinson is a start unless you have better options. Steeler receivers, they're getting the ball divided, but still getting enough fantasy points to make each of the top three worth playing. Eric Ebron's also coming on as well.
Yeah, I would say like you. I mean, I underestimated, I think, for the first time the Steelers defense in suggesting start Joe Burrow. And they took care of business. And I think they have a very good chance of doing the same with Robinson at running back for the Jaguars. The Jaguars passing the ball do not have an upper echelon offense passing the ball, which is going to put more focus by the Steelers defense, as you said, on James Robinson. And but here your Steelers are. I mean, they're undefeated at 9-0. I'm sure you don't mind talking about that.
No.
And then you look at the head of their schedule. Who's going to beat them? There's really there's not one great team left on their schedule that you can say, oh, yeah, I'd give them the nod. So the Steelers really have a good chance of going undefeated. If they were going to lose, they would have lost by now, but they didn't. The teams they would have lost to would have been like the Ravens, who they destroyed. Mm-hmm. And so I think they destroyed by having the Ravens outgain them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But they have such a good defense that makes up for so many things that maybe they show up with a great offensive output, maybe they don't, but they're still going to win.
Patriots, Texans. Patriots coming on, and Damian Harris with his 121 did look strong. Now, for the first time, I'm saying to start a New England running back. Jacoby Myers looks like a corner comer as well. I can tell you he's worth a flex. Texans, I'd stick with Watson and Fuller with Cooks worthy of at least a flex play.
Wait, where'd Jacoby Myers go to school?
Someplace in North Carolina.
Yeah, and we were all basically jumped on full force the Cam Newton bandwagon to begin the season. But again, that was all before COVID and just doesn't look like the same guy. But, the Patriots and Bill Belichick, as you know, have a history of a guy like Jacoby Myers going completely skyrocketing one game. And then where is he the next game? So I don't know if I would start Jacoby Myers. The Texans have a pretty good defense at times not. But that's why I think that it's hard to take a Patriots offensive player, to me, until they start establishing themselves back to what they were before Cam Newton had that COVID positive test. But blocking scheme-wise, who they have blocking, the scheme of what they do, and Josh McDaniels is outstanding. It's just, is Cam going to be the guy that pulled it off? Has he hit his stride yet coming back from being sick? In my opinion, no. So that makes everyone else on the Patriots question mark. But the Texans are the Texans. And then Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, both running and passing. And so, yeah, you go with him and whoever's hot at receiver.
Eagles, Browns, Miles Sanders played well, so maybe he's a start, but that's it. Maybe Boston Scott, because he seems to find the end zone. For the Browns, both Chubb and Hunt raked 100 yards plus. That makes them a pair we're sticking to, but that's kind of it for me.
I would agree with you. And I think I'm now, like you, off of all the Eagles players, if I have at least a halfway better option. The Browns, though, this is a team that really impresses me, not fantasy football-wise. Like you said, their running game and the running backs, I guess, are elite. But they're running behind an elite offensive line. That's why, or in part at least, what makes them elite. And I think just having watched that game, the way the blocking schemes, both running and pass protection-wise, they are solid. And Baker Mayfield, has he even had a great game this year? I don't think that he has fantasy.
He's had one really solid super game.
Okay, but I'm saying, what's their record? 7-3, 7-2, something like that. I mean, they are one of the top teams in the AFC, and they definitely they had a little lull there in the beginning or the middle part of the season, but then they're back now. So I like both of their running backs, as you suggested. The one who led off the game last week was Hunt. So both of those guys are outstanding. But like you said, passing game wise, and I just really, there's nobody. receiver-wise that is consistent. And Mayfield is not really consistent throwing the ball, but he's doing enough good things to keep the chains moving and allowing them to score points.
Lions Panthers, well, it's the usual suspects in Detroit. Look at the injury wires, though. Stafford is getting his thumb x-rayed. Swift is solid, so's Jones, who had 10 targets, and Hawkinson only saw 4 looks and no touchdowns. Now, their usage is going to depend on Stafford's ability and whether he's going to be able to play and play up to par if he does play. Bridgewater had an MRI in his knee, so watch that closely. If he can't go, I do like Mike Davis as a flex, but no one else on this club.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it there. Is both teams have some question marks, injuries to both quarterbacks, injuries at running back. That's in Hawkinson. For that very reason, to me, is a question mark. Where up until now, he hasn't been any question to me because Stafford was always looking to him, whether it's out in the field or especially in the red zone. They're designing plays for Hawkinson, and so that's a chemistry that's going upward, not downward. And hopefully Stafford can play, and that would allow Hawkinson, I think, to have a good game as well.
Titans and Ravens. Ravens need a rebound, but against Tennessee, that's going to be tough. Tannehill's coming off an off day, so therefore so are the receivers. But Derrick Henry is not. Lamar Jackson has been good, if not spectacular lately, so I'd start him and Tannehill as well as Henry. Considering the Ravens played in a monsoon last week, you can give any of them a break. Willie Snead, good option either way.
And I think the Titans, everybody is rooting for them, including me. This is the team that the Titans beat last year in the playoffs. And I think that, I love everything about them. Offensively, defensively, the way Derrick Henry runs the ball right now anyway, is in last year for that matter, nobody's running the ball as well as he is. And he's getting gaping holes. And when he's not, he's making gaping holes.
Well, doesn't he just?
and Tannehill obviously didn't have a great game, and as you said, their passing game suffered as a result. But the Baltimore Colts, Indianapolis Colts, pretty good defense as well. So I like Tannehill to rebound. I like, again, A.J. Brown, Johnny Smith. They're both great targets, especially in both of them in the red zone. So that's a team that I think I like them to win this game over the Ravens. And I also like the Ravens to rebound because they'll be playing at home again. They look bad against the Patriots, and I don't look for them. I don't think they will look bad 2 weeks in a row.
Jets at Chargers. Now, here's the big question. Can Justin Herbert win at the wire? Yes, against the hapless Jets. But wait, this is the NFL, so don't write them off. Jets coming off a bye. I do like Michael P. Ryan and Jamison Crowder, but that's it. Herbert is solid, as is Keenan Allen and Kalen Ballage. He's a decent option this week, too.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned it. Can Justin Herbert win at the wire? This is what he's going to have to do because he is in that rookie of the year candidate talk now that really Joe Burrow is occupied all by himself for most of this year. But Justin Herbert has the better team and yet hasn't been able to win. I know he's a rookie, but there's some things he can do and the rest of the team can do, and to get them over the hump. And this is a game they have to win. The Jets are winless. They've got zero confidence. The Chargers are at home. Everything lines up for them to win the game. Everything lines up for the Chargers offensively to gash the Jets defensively, who everybody seems to be doing this year. So I think everything adds up for a Charger victory and for the Chargers to do well fantasy football-wise. And I think, as we can both agree, there's really nobody on the Jets worth looking at fantasy football-wise anyway.
And, you have to kind of look at the Chargers have to play a 60-minute game instead of a 58-minute game, that's for sure.
Which most NFL games come down to those last 2 minutes, right?
Yes, they do. Dolphins and Broncos. Dolphins on the rise. Broncos still a mess. I like the kicker here as well as Tua and Salman Ahmed, along with Devontae Parker. Now, I also like Jakeem Grant as a pickup here. Just Patrick, though, on the orange.
I think the Dolphins, to me, are the story this year of what a great job Brian Flores has done. Because they don't need their quarterback to throw for 300 yards. They don't need their quarterback to throw for 200 yards. I don't think Tua has even done that yet. So as long as he's making good decisions, they don't need their offense to play great. They've got a great defense. They can make plays on special teams. They can, like Drew Lock threw 4 interceptions last week. He's shown that he's capable of having a very bad game, and now he's coming against a very good Dolphins defense. So I like the Dolphins to win this game. I like Tua and the Dolphins to continue doing what they're doing, which is fantasy football wise, not great production, but they're not going to lose the game either.
Cowboys and Vikings. Wow. Nobody on the Cowboys this time. Nobody. And pretty much everyone on the Vikings. Now, I do like Pollard on Dallas as a flex play. He's getting playing time and he's taking advantage of it. He looks quick and he is getting some playing time, giving Zeke a rest. And when he does, he seems to be outplaying Zeke, although Zeke had more yards last week, but he had more carries.
Right. And I think for me, the Cowboys at this part of the year anyway are almost turning into the Jets, right? I mean, they're not going to win the game. They don't look like they want to win the game, and they're not going to stop anybody. So the Vikings and Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins and the receiving core, I think they're all going to produce fantasy football-wise. I think they're going to win the game. They're at home. The Vikings are really trending upward. As you saw, they dominated the Bears last week, but then lately, who hasn't? And I think defensively, the Vikings are on the rise. They're kind of peaking at the right time. They're even though they've got a losing record still, they've only got 5 losses. So if they win out or win or close to winning out, I mean, they could end up with 10 or 11 wins this year.
Yeah, the Packers.
I know that's looking far into the future, but I like them at least this week against the Cowboys.
Packers and Colts. Now, Colts are a really good test for Aaron Rodgers. And while I like Rodgers here, I don't expect the big numbers. Colts defense is really good. I really like Hines, as you mentioned earlier, over Taylor here for Indy. And you can feel solid about starting Michael Pittman. The Colts will try to take away Adams, but that leaves Marquez Scantling wide open, so you pick your poison.
And that's the thing. The Packers and Aaron Rodgers, as much as I hate to say this being a former Lion and Bear, that nobody is able to really slow them down. I mean, they might take one guy away, but does anybody ever really take away Devontae Adams?
No.
No one ever really shuts down Aaron Rodgers. And like you said, I mean, last week it was Marquez Valdez-Scantling. This week it may not be, because he really hasn't backed up one good game with another good game. But
we'll got Lazard back too. So.
Right. So they've got options, and I think I like Aaron Rodgers this week against the Colts, even though you're right, the Colts defense has looked good at times, but then they've also given up plays at times. And I do like what the Colts, though, are doing. I think Frank Reich has had that team playing fantastic, especially lately. Phillip Rivers has finally, settled in and getting back to doing what he's always done well. He's been great at the short passing game, getting the ball out of his hands. When he tries to do too much, that's sometimes when bad things happen, and he seems to have steered away from that for the most part this year.
Chiefs at Raiders, Kansas City coming off a bye, and the Raiders trying to find themselves mostly now on the ground. I don't look for Carr to rebound, so to me, he's a sit. The running backs are going to continue to share the load, but I don't see either one going off at 100+ this week. McCole Hardman went on the COVID list, so keep an eye on him and Watkins, and it might be the week that maybe Le'Veon Bell finally gets a shot.
Well, okay, let's who actually beat the Chiefs this year? The Raiders.
Yeah.
So
that's at AFC West. It's a battle over there. I mean, they're really
it is. And now I'll grant it. The Chiefs are a great team. They're coming off a bye, which I'm sure Andy Reid used well. They're a tough team to slow down. No one really has so far, but no one's really slowed down the Raiders either. And offensively, I do like Derek Carr here, which means I like the rest of their receiving core. I like Josh Jacobs. And as we mentioned before, we were a little suspect of Devontae Booker taking some of the load away from Josh Jacobs, but that didn't really slow down either one of them. So I like Josh Jacobs here as well. And again, the Chiefs, start everyone if you have them.
Rams, Buccaneers. Now, should be a high-scoring game despite two solid defenses. Don't count either quarterback out. I'm more sold on the Bucs running backs, Jones and Fournette, than I am on the Rams running backs. Now, receivers, they're all good on either side. As much as I hate to say it, I actually did before today like Antonio Brown to score here. But wait for it. The NFL is investigating a possible misdemeanor he was involved with recently, which just came up. Something about throwing a bicycle at a security guard shack and destroying a security camera. Right now, he's still playing, but that might not be a game. That'll be a game time decision, possibly. So you want to keep your eyes on that if you have Antonio Brown.
Well, you know how I feel about the Rams this year. And I think that Sean McVay he is so focused to me on getting this team playing at their highest level ever under him. And they look to me to be doing that, both offensively and defensively. It's that wide zone running game that has been so effective for the few offenses that run it, like Kyle Shanahan. And passing the ball wise, I mean, everything they do passing ball comes off of that running game. And the Buccaneers win a little bit differently. You know, last week it was Ronald Jones, and Brady seems to have, found the winning formula for him and looks solid pretty much ever since the slow start. He's every week really shown up to be like he's always been, solid and consistent. And obviously their defense is great. I like the Rams to win this, even though they're playing in Tampa, because I think the Rams right now are really playing like the best team in the league, at least. And everything we're talking about in terms of what team's in the favorite spot or what team's going to make the playoffs, which ones aren't, it's always seemed kind of, they get on these 2 or 3 or 4 week runs and then they fall off a cliff, then they come back. But I don't see the Rams doing that again. They did it once, but I think they're going to be solid from here on out.
And there you have it. Now go get some barbecue, and you know my address. They ship stuff to all over the world, so you can have them ship me that pulled pork sandwich with.
And I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but the place is called Texas Barbecue. I don't get it. Because North Carolina is known for North Carolina barbecue, but whatever.
Well, eat it anyway. It's good for you. Kramer and Brill, Fantasy Football Podcast, now a video cast as well. You can hear the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, libsomradio.com, wherever you get your podcast. And now you can also see the video cast on YouTube by going to my Bob Brill YouTube channel, or by finding the links for all of this at kramerandbrill.com right there at the bottom of your page. That's the easiest way. Don't forget about our brand new feature, Ask the Quarterback. Each week, we'll select a fan who writes in to ask Eric a fantasy football-related question. We'll bring the fan onto the show and ask the question directly. You can be that fan by simply emailing us at brillpro@gmail.com. That's brillpro@gmail.com. For my barbecue eating friend Eric Kramer, I'm Bob Brill. We'll see you next time.